you missed it earlier, my name is Ruth Halstead. I'm one of the student chaplains here. Today we are continuing with our stained glass window series with the stained glass here in the chapel. So we are on to the fig tree, which you may be heard in the scripture, but you can see on your bulletin, you've got a nice picture of the window. It's also on the projector here. It's not on the projector here. However, it's on your bulletin. Also, if you're over on this side, if you can turn your neck, it's up there. Or maybe on your way out, you can just take a quick look at it. It's off to your left side. It's the second to last window. But Joy is going to be our lovely tech support. So, today we're covering the fig tree. As I was preparing to write this sermon and Joya was helping me with the bulletin, we both were looking at the picture on the front, and we were, admiring the lovely window, and we were thinking about how it's a nice window. It's fairly simple, just a tree, a good, nice green tree, and then a bad tree that's on fire. And it's now on the screen. Thank you, Joya. So Joya and I were discussing how it was a very nice window, but that you really could have put any tree up there and told us it was a fig tree, because neither of us knows what a fig tree looks like. Now that's a little bit of a silly story, but it fits right in with the scripture for today, because it is all about recognizing things for what they truly are. Now we heard the scripture right before we sang, but just in case you missed it, we're going to go back through it a little bit slower. At the very beginning, it starts out, "Beware of false prophets, who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves." Now, I don't know about you, but just as I haven't run into too many fig trees, I don't run into a lot of prophets necessarily, false or otherwise. However, I do hear a lot of things from different people, and as a young person, I receive a lot of advice. There are a lot of people to listen to or not listen to. And while it has not been important thus far in my life to know what a fig tree looks like, it is very important to know who I should be listening to know if someone is giving good advice or living their life in a way that I should be following, or if they are a wolf in sheep's clothing. So when we think about prophets, when we hear that verse, that's what I like to think about. It's maybe role models or folks that give you advice or just public figures that you see. After the part about false prophets, this verse goes on to talk a lot about fruit. And it talks about how every good tree bears good fruit, the bad tree bears bad fruit. The good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. That is to say that when people may be able to fool us for a little bit, but eventually we will know them by their fruits. If their words and their actions, if our words and our actions don't line up, we will know, we will be found out. You need to live a life in alignment to make sure that you are a good tree bearing good fruit. Now, as I was thinking over this verse, you've heard already a lot about role models and advice. When I was growing up, as many young people do, I was always looking for who I should be following, who I should be listening to, paying attention to, modeling my life after. Of course, I have lovely parents who are excellent role models, but two is simply not enough. I needed more. And when I was in high school, I participated in a lot of different activities. I was on the robotics team, I was on a mountain bike team, I did a lot of different things. And a lot of those activities were things that were very male-dominated. There was a lot of young boys doing them, a lot of grown men helping with them, and not a lot of girls around. However, on my mountain bike team, we had some excellent women who were coaches for us. They were moms or they were some folks from the community who came and helped. Now, we can learn a lot from people who are different from us. However, it's really hard to imagine ourselves doing something in the future if we've never seen someone like us doing it. Now, when I was on this mountain bike team, I had all these role models who were really strong women and showed me what it meant to be a strong woman, to be a mountain biker, to be a cyclist. It wasn't just something for the boys, that everyone could be a part of the team. And as I was thinking about role models and thinking about this verse, I think there's two big questions that we need to ask when we read about false prophets and knowing people by their fruits. Those two questions are, first, who or what are we representing? And who are we providing representation for? Now, we've talked about mountain biking and fig trees and all kinds of different things, but to connect it back to faith, when we say we are a Christian, we automatically become a representative of something. We become a representative of Jesus, of God, maybe of a specific church. When I wear this name tag here that says Ruth Halstead Student Chaplain, I become a representative of the Pastoral Care Department here at VMP. At all times, the things that we say about ourselves speak to who we are representing. If our words and our actions are not in line, that can be really troublesome for people. However, there's always also people watching. There are people around us all the time who see how we act and how we live. And if we are living a life that shows that we love God, that we love our neighbors, that we are following the scripture, that we are caring for others, that's a way that we can be bearing good fruit, and other people can see that and follow us. When I was growing up, I also had the pastor of my church growing up was a lovely woman named Pastor Jenny. And she taught me a lot about faith through her sermons. She taught my confirmation class, taught me a lot about what it means to be a Christian and what it means to have faith. Then when I got to college and I was thinking about what I would be doing next, I had Pastor Jenny in the back of my mind as a role model, as a good tree bearing good fruit. Because I had seen her and the way that she lived out her life, both in her upfront presence as the pastor and in her life more casually, and both of those things were in alignment. I saw what it was like to bear good fruit. And I knew that that was potentially an option for me, because I had her as a role model. Now I think when we think about role models, it can automatically think about people who are younger than us. There's lots of funny stories about little ears hearing things that perhaps they shouldn't have heard, and then repeating some more colorful language at inopportune moments. Those of you who have been around children ever in your lives know that they hear a lot, and they will repeat it, whether or not you wanted them to repeat it. Now that's a more negative example, but works for positive examples as well. And it doesn't just mean people who are younger than you. While little ears and little eyes or little ones are folks who are kind of absorbing things at a rapid pace, and they're some of the folks who are are listening the most, everyone around you at all times is watching, and they see what you do. If people around you at your church or in the area you live in here or your neighborhood see you living out your faith, that can be an excellent way to show them God. An excellent way to show them what it's like to bear good fruits. If we go to church on Sunday or Wednesday, and then we live the rest of our lives during the other 6 days of the week in a way that matches what we hear on Sunday, that is an amazing way for others to encounter God and also to see what it means to love God and love our neighbors as ourselves. Everything that you do, everything that a person does, has consequences. Whether for the people you're speaking directly with or directly involved with, or simply for the bystanders. We often ourselves are bystanders and looking to other people who we may be able to learn from and follow. It's important to remember that we need to live our lives in alignment with who we say we are, because people are always watching and we are always watching others. It's important to be discerning in who you are listening to make sure that it is someone who is bearing good fruit and not a wolf in sheep's clothing. We are not perfect. So sometimes our lives, our actions will not be in alignment with our words. I know all the time I'm doing things and thinking, wow, that is not who I am. However, Jesus isn't calling us to perfection here. He's calling us to make sure that we are doing our absolute best to bear good fruit. Doing our absolute best to live a life that is in alignment with who we say we are, that our actions reflect that. As you go out for the rest of this week, I would encourage you to think about those two big questions that I asked. Who or what are we a representative of? And who are we providing representation for? When people see us, when they hear from us, when they know how we live our lives, do they see us as a nice, sweet, I don't really know how to describe a fig, I don't know how it tastes, but a nice, sweet fig who is coming from a good tree? Or do they see us as a rotten apple from a tree that really is better used for firewood? How can we go out and live our lives so that we are not following wolves in sheep's clothing, and so that we are making sure that we are good trees bearing good fruit? You would join me in gratitude and prayer.